MARCUS. 78% of board directors now view data sovereignty as a strategic risk, not an IT concern. That number has tripled in just 18 months. And if your organization isn't having this conversation at the C-suite level yet, you're already behind. SOPHIA. Here's what keeps executives awake at night. Your data is scattered across multiple cloud providers. Your intellectual property lives on servers in jurisdictions you don't control. Regulatory frameworks are tightening by the quarter. India's data residency requirements. Singapore's enhanced cybersecurity regulations. Europe's Digital Sovereignty Act. The EU's push for strategic autonomy. Each one adds friction, compliance cost, and operational complexity. And then there's the geopolitical layer. When governments weaponize data access. When cloud providers face sanctions or forced data handovers. Suddenly that cost optimization decision you made 3 years ago looks like a liability. You're not just managing infrastructure anymore. You're managing sovereignty. You're managing risk. And you're managing it in real time, with incomplete information, and mounting pressure from every direction. MARCUS. In the next 9 minutes, we're going to unpack why digital sovereignty has moved from the CTO's roadmap to the board agenda. We'll show you the 3 architectural shifts that separate organizations that have seized control from those still asking permission. We'll walk through how Singapore and India are reshaping the rules. And we'll give you a clear framework to audit your current state and chart a path forward. This isn't about rejecting cloud. It's about reclaiming agency over how you operate in a fragmented, contested digital landscape. Let's go. MARCUS. The first shift is this. From cloud consolidation to cloud fragmentation as deliberate strategy. For 15 years, the narrative was unified. Move to the cloud. Reduce CapEx. One vendor. One ecosystem. One control plane. That story is dead. According to recent Gartner research from 2025, 64% of enterprises are now running multi-cloud strategies intentionally, not by accident. But here's the nuance that matters for your board. This isn't about vendor optionality anymore. It's about regulatory necessity and geopolitical positioning. Take India. The Reserve Bank of India and the National Payments Corporation of India have mandated that payment systems and certain financial data remain on domestic infrastructure. That doesn't mean you can negotiate with AWS or Azure. That means you deploy on AWS Asia Pacific. Or you build on Indian cloud providers like Yotta or Vimana. Singapore's monetary authority went further. They're requiring financial institutions to prove data residency compliance and to maintain redundancy across geographically dispersed data centers. One vendor can't satisfy that requirement. Your application needs to run in 3 places simultaneously. That's not fragmentation born from indecision. That's fragmentation born from regulation. And the application architecture that supports this isn't traditional multi-cloud. It's a federated model where each region maintains sovereignty over its own data while sensing transactional logic across borders. Here's the application. Audit your current cloud contracts, not your SLAs. Your data residency clauses. Where does your data actually live? Can you prove it to a regulator? If the answer is unclear, that's your first board-level conversation. Document which workloads are data sensitive, which jurisdictions they touch, and which local compliance frameworks apply. That exercise alone will reshape your cloud strategy. SOPHIA. The second driver is vendor lock-in becoming a geopolitical liability, not just a commercial one. For years, Vendor lock-in was framed as a business problem. Higher switching costs. Proprietary APIS. Reduced negotiating leverage. All true. But in 2026, lock-in is now a sovereignty problem. Consider what happened when the U.S. Commerce Department restricted certain semiconductor and AI exports to China. Companies using only Western cloud infrastructure suddenly couldn't operate certain workloads in their largest markets. They had no domestic alternative. They couldn't quickly pivot. According to McKinsey's 2025 Asia-Pacific Digital Leaders Survey, 37% of organizations across Singapore, India, and Southeast Asia now prioritize cloud portability and open-source infrastructure specifically to reduce geopolitical exposure. They're not just building for flexibility. They're building for resilience in a world where your infrastructure access could change overnight, based on decisions made in Washington, Brussels, or Beijing. The real example is Infosys. The Indian IT services giant has been aggressively moving customers toward Kubernetes and containerized workloads hosted across multiple cloud providers, including domestic Indian clouds. Not because one vendor is bad, because they understand that their clients operate globally and need the ability to move workloads based on regulatory or geopolitical shifts. They're building sovereignty into the service delivery model. Here's what that means for your organization. Start a rationalization project focused on workload portability. Not just cloud cost if you're running deeply embedded vendor-specific services, proprietary databases, or closed-source stacks. Begin migrating critical applications toward containers and Kubernetes. This doesn't mean you drop AWS or Azure. It means you reduce single vendor dependence for your most strategically sensitive workloads. And yes, this costs more in engineering time upfront. But the downside risk of immobility is now larger than the upside cost savings of vendor consolidation. SOPHIA. The third shift is this. Governance and compliance are no longer IT-led. They're now architecture-led. Historically, data governance was a compliance checkbox. You had policies. You had tools. You hired a chief data officer. But policies don't prevent an engineer from accidentally storing sensitive data in the wrong region. Tools break when architectures change. What's different now is that the architecture itself must enforce sovereignty. This is called privacy by design or sovereignty by architecture. And it's becoming the differentiator between boards that sleep well and those that don't. According to Deloitte's 2025 Asia-Pacific Risk and Resilience Survey, organizations that embedded data residency requirements into their infrastructure code and architecture saw compliance breach risks drop by 53% compared to policy-only approaches. Think about that. Not 53% improvement in documentation. 53% reduction in actual breach risk. That's architectural enforcement, not procedural. The example here is Singapore's GovTech initiative. When the Singapore government modernized its digital infrastructure, they didn't just tighten policies. They restructured the entire architecture. Data flows are hard-coded to remain within Singapore's borders. APIS that would violate residency requirements simply don't exist. Engineers can't accidentally violate policy because the policy is baked into the infrastructure itself. What you do? Work with your engineering leadership to audit your deployment pipelines, your infrastructure as code repositories, and your data movement patterns. Can your system architects visually trace where data flows and where it's stored? Can a new engineer violating data residency requirements be blocked by the infrastructure itself, not by a compliance reminder? If the answer is no, You have a board-level infrastructure debt. That debt is worth addressing now, before regulators or auditors force your hand. SOPHIA. Picture this. 18 months from now, your board reviews your digital risk posture. The conversation doesn't center on cloud spend or uptime metrics. It centers on resilience, on agency, on your ability to operate in a world where the rules change faster than your IT team can react. Your Chief Information Security Officer presents a dashboard showing real-time data residency, compliance across every workload. Your engineering teams operate with confidence because sovereignty is built into their architecture, not bolted onto their processes. You've successfully migrated 3 critical applications to a multi-cloud, containerized model. You're no longer dependent on a single vendor's geopolitical positioning. When regulators in India announce new data residency rules, you can adapt in weeks, not quarters, because your infrastructure supports it. When the geopolitical landscape shifts, you're positioned to move, not paralyzed. That's not a technical achievement. That's a strategic one. That's the difference between organizations that lead and organizations that react. And that difference starts now, with a single conversation at your board table. MARCUS. Digital sovereignty isn't a future concern. It's a present-day strategic imperative. And most organizations are moving too slowly. Subscribe to Apex Minds and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video, where we'll walk you through the exact vendor evaluation framework that Singapore's top financial services firms use to assess cloud partners for sovereignty readiness. This is the tactical tool your procurement and IT teams need. See you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching this video. If these insights resonated with you, please subscribe to Apex Minds D4J and hit the notification bell so you never miss our weekly content. Share this video with a colleague who needs to hear it. We will see you in the next one. Keep pushing forward. Thanks for listening. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to Apex Minds D4J for more powerful insights. See you in the next one.